Reconvene. Thanks for coming back on time. Starting off, part two is the North Country, so I want to welcome both Gary Douglas and Tony Collins for a presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Greetings from the North Country, or as our friends in Quebec and Ontario call us, the South Country. We have been psyched, enthused, and committed about this process, Governor, since the very beginning, and we remain just as psyched and enthused about it as we start round three, and I can't thank you enough for the opportunity. One of our key inspirations has been one of the great fans of the North Country, and one of the great fans of the Adirondacks, Teddy Roosevelt, from the very beginning. And so we're going to start where we left off last October with our presentation, which is this slide with the great man and one of his great quotes, "Get action, seize the moment, man was never intended to become an oyster." We don't have any oysters in the North Country, Governor. But we do have a lot of pearls, and we've been identifying them and polishing them and even more importantly, stringing them together. We thought about how to kind of put a new kind of perspective on our work, now coming up to the third year, kind of talking about some of the same things. And it struck us that one of the aspects of what we're all doing in our regions and that we've really taken on enthusiastically in the North Country is really the notion of connecting the dots. From the old days, if you had a project and it was an agriculture project, it was seen as an agriculture project, and it went for a silo of funding at ag and markets. And if it was a broadband project, it was a telecommunications project, and it went to a different agency. That now part of the great power of what you're allowing us to do and what we think we're doing very well in the North Country is connecting those dots. We're reinforcing each other across the seven-county region. But we're also reinforcing projects and strategies that weren't seen as being linked in the past. And we're going to show you some examples of that are just some of the many examples of how we're able to really connect dots in ways that are going to deliver in the years ahead far greater power from that collection of project awards than would have been the case in the past. Continuing delivery. We believe that's our story going forward. From the start, and you've heard us say this before, and you all know it, we're rural, we're smaller scale, we're dispersed, we're diverse, we're different. We're different than any other region. That also made us, I think, that much more enthused about wanting this kind of opportunity to be treated differently and to plan differently and put projects forward together differently than having to fit into prescribed boxes, as was always the case in the past. As was indicated by our friends in the Mohawk Valley, we had no tradition, none, of working together on a seven-county basis in our area, let alone in terms of economic development cooperation. And that has been, I think, our greatest success. We really have come together. That collaboration is literally becoming broader and deeper every single week. And we see it now where folks dealing with Fort Drum call the North Country Chamber for support, and we're all just communicating, even off the screen, outside of this process in ways that we're reinforcing and helping each other because we got to know each other and trust each other through this process. We've mentioned how that we really weren't served well by past statewide approaches. Now we have that effective platform. We believe we're continuing to provide strong delivery, and we have, importantly, another aspect of this that I don't think gets enough attention. You've given us an opportunity, if we grasp it, and we've grasped it, an opportunity for a new kind of collaborative relationship with the state, with your cabinet members, with other agencies who are paying attention to us as a regional council and as co-chairs and are paying attention to our plan. That again, goes far beyond the parameters of what people may be seeing in this competition and funding awards and how are the projects doing. On a day-to-day basis, there's just a lot of interaction, and I've been at the Chamber for 21 years, never had this kind of access and day-to-day interaction and consultation with the state. And that's delivering results in far more ways, again, than are necessarily being reported in what has the council done over the last year. How are we doing this? Focusing on strategies. We chose from the beginning and are sticking to this. The projects are just one way to implement strategies. There are other ways to implement strategies. You lobby in Washington. There are things about policies. There are regulations. Sometimes it's just partnering people together so they help to get something done. And so we remain and will remain focused on strategies, and projects is just one of the tools for carrying those out. Sticking to our criteria and our process. Not let's make a deal. I'll support you, you support me. We really have, and I think it's why we're becoming trusted and kind of respected now as we go into a third year in the region, is that we're following our criteria, we're following our process, and it's working. And again, connecting those dots to maximize impact. When we look at projects and other actions, we particularly like to find ones that don't just support one of our strategies, but 2 or 3, or as you'll see, 4 or 5 or 6 in some cases, which we weren't allowed really to do in the past. Continuing delivery, just a quick summary of our numbers. 2011, we had 68 grant awards, including 15 priority projects. All are proceeding. Plus, we had a $30 million allocation in bond authority, all of which was allocated to the re-energy project at Fort Drum. 2012 round, I mean, really think of it, we're just a few months out, but 80 grant awards, including 19 priority projects, 78 are proceeding. 2 are having to restructure, in part because what was awarded was different than what was requested, but both of those are going to proceed, and we're confident of that. So we're confident we're going to once again be talking about 80 projects funded, 80 projects proceeding. Other new things underway, cleaner, greener communities. We have embraced this with enthusiasm as well. It fits our region. It's another one of those things we've been waiting for an opportunity to make that part of our strategy and our story, and thank you for giving us that opportunity. Our sustainability plan is completed, adopted, and is already being used in support of projects and strategies. It's already being referenced by projects. They're already looking at that as well as the regional plan to show how are we complying, how are we reinforcing that plan, and we intend to make sure that's the case going forward. Path through history, we've just finalized our projects, and they're going in this week, and we feel real good about that. It's, for our area, another important ingredient to tourism development. Innovation hotspots, it might surprise you, but Tony and I have been talking quite a bit about this, and we just promise you our team is in place, our concept is developed, and we think you're going to like what we submit. Opportunity agenda, we have a working group developing a responsive and impactful proposal, and we're looking forward to that too. Again, thanks to the flexibility we've been assured is there to respond to poverty in our region, which looks different, is dispersed, has a different character than poverty in metro areas, but poverty is poverty. If you're a poor person, you've had generations of kind of hopelessness. It's the same whether you're in Brooklyn or whether you're in Long Lake, New York. And the fact that we're going to be able to address it in some different ways, we think is going to be quite impactful. Tony, you're up.
Thanks, and I will really go quickly here just to highlight a couple of small points that really underscore how we feel and how we react in the North Country. Who would have thought that with the closure of the Air Force Base at Plattsburgh that would have created an opportunity? And now, look at the numbers. Look at the transportation cluster that we've got there. Fantastic. Next one. Same thing down to Fort Drum. Who would have thought that we could have the opportunity of a lifetime by reacting positively to at every opportunity? So from housing, energy, a major energy facility, from biomass, which is one of, we believe that we can be an energy exporting region of the state. Base retention, we watch Griffith, we watch Plattsburgh. We're not going to be caught short on this time around. We've funded projects to help support. If BRAC comes, we'll be ready. More importantly, to make certain the base can continue to expand, there is something called the Army Compatible Use Buffer, and that's having land and zoned and not to be overdeveloped so that the Army can continue to do its actions around the perimeter of the base. Next one. I can't echo enough that the opportunity that broadband we've grabbed it with both hands, and it's just changing the region. Port access. We couldn't have the wind farms if we hadn't have changed the Ogdensburg port and allowed for the blades to be delivered. Rail. Who would have thought that we could have been revitalizing a paper mill, Newton Falls, which potentially will bring back 200 jobs. That is hard work, and all the way up to the Lieutenant Governor. He needs to be acknowledged, him and everybody beneath them, for helping us work with Newton Falls. We've got a plan for all of the Adirondack railroads to be rejuvenated. To the Canadian connection, again, back to Plattsburgh, who would have thought that the closing of an Air Force base could have given us a blueprint, a roadmap for how to develop the connection between the US and Canada right there in Plattsburgh. So we think that, and now everything from people to shipping, we've sped it up. Higher education, the R&D, I just want to stop here for a second to emphasize that it's not just about the leadership, but this has become a grassroots movement to support the innovation economy. So we've got 23 ventures in an incubator that was funded by the state. We've got 150 projects in the pipeline. Our alumni have stepped forward and put pressure on me. We're going to develop an alumni angel fund. That gap between up to the venture funds. How do you get to that point? We're talking about between 25 and 50 alumni annually making a 5-year commitment to annually provide $10,000, which would be $250,000, $250,000 to $500,000 invested annually in startup companies coming out of the region. So tremendously excited. That did not come from me. That was actually brought to me by the alumni watching what's going on. So just that's the impact, and I'll come back finally to the impact that this organization has had. Trudeau Institute, biotech cluster up in the Adirondacks, Pfizer, ESD stepped forward. A major Pfizer facility that was going to be closed stepped forward, and now it's been sold to a qualified user of that facility.
And Canadians.
A lot going on. Probably, you could pick any one of those dots and talk about it. Alcoa, $600 million modernization. That wouldn't have happened without the state saying we're going to be there with you each step of the way. And so to the final slide. Now, those around the table may think that this is pandering. Now, if it was going to be pandering, we would have quickly changed it and had Roanne in there. But the way he even grips the paddle is reminiscent of Teddy Roosevelt. I know I'm kind of crossing some lines. But anyway, history has repeated itself, and this is really up there to advertise the Adirondack Challenge, which is going to be July the 21st. We expect everybody in the room to be at that event. And finally, what I'd like to do is answer the question that Harvey kind of almost threw across the table to me. What are universities doing to help drive the economy? And yes, the answers that were given, I would agree with them all. But as we saw a week ago with the Tourism Summit, I didn't know that tourism was the 5th biggest industry in New York State, shining a light on it, particularly the involvement of you and the cabinet. It's the same thing with this council. As we all work around the state nationally, people saying, what's going on in New York? This partnership between higher education and industry. It seems so simple, but shining the light on it is what's, I know, transforming our campus, and I'd suggest the other campuses. Nancy's nodding. It's simply shining the light and saying, this is the way that we're going to do it. You don't have to do any more than that. It's making so public, that partnership. And so shining the light from your perspective, your excuse me, your cabinet members, whether it be tourism, 5th biggest industry, who knew? Whether it be higher education and universities, just keep shining the light. That's the best way of doing it. Thanks.
Well done. I think I need a Teddy Roosevelt hat next time.
We'll get you one.
And a bow tie. He looked dapper. He looked more dapper than I did.
We'll work on it.
You know where I can get a bow tie.
Questions?
I have a question about history repeating itself. You have a jewel on campus, which was designated, interestingly enough, by Governor Mario Cuomo, the Center for Advanced Technology. What is the role of the center in all these activities? So,
in fact, I sent we've got a proposal that was formed. We had a board meeting this past weekend around this, the Alumni Angel Fund. I sometimes have to actually get some permission. Not often, but I had to. So I'd sent it out around campus, including to Professor Babu, and he said, count me in. I want to buy 2 shares of the potential 25 to 50, and he's going to use royalty money that comes back to camp from the licensing fees from some of the inventions that flows back to the university. He wants to be an alumnus in that sense of investing, and so they're very connected. In fact, Leisha is the keynote speaker tomorrow night in Saratoga at the annual meeting, and she'll report back to you the enthusiasm for the self-investment of funds from licensing agreements into the Angel Fund.
That's great.
Thank you.
Questions? Good job. Next, moving to the Capital Region, we have Dr. Robert Jones and also Jim Barba. And I want to welcome Dr. Jones. He is the newest co-chair. He was recruited at the airport, I think, when he landed, coming here from the University of Albany. But welcome both.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Governor, Lieutenant Governor. As you say, Lieutenant Governor, Dr. Jones and I are the new kids on the block as co-chairs of this Capital Region Economic Development Council. This is the very first time we participated in this forum as co-chairs, and we're very, very pleased to be here, and we appreciate the confidence expressed in us by appointing us co-chairs. This slide shows the respective titles that we tell our employers we do every day, but we really represent all 8 counties in the region, and we take our work on this council very, very seriously. As co-chairs, we bring different experiences and perspectives to our leadership roles. I'm a lifelong resident of New York's Capital Region. Robert is relatively new to the area. I've served on the council from the very beginning. Robert only recently appointed, as you say. Since my original appointment to the council and subsequent selection as co-chair, I have learned a great deal about why the governor created the regional councils and what you, Governor Cuomo, expect of us to achieve for the region and for the state. And I thank you for the opportunity you've given us here in our region to be able to help you transform the economy of our region and New York State. Robert?
Thank you, Jim. Good afternoon, Governor and distinguished colleagues. May I start by saying, when I was contemplating pursuing the presidency at the University of Albany, there were 2 important factors that influenced my decision. First, Governor, your commitment to the State University of New York and championing the historic NY SUNY 2020 Act was very, very important in that decision. And then secondly, your resolve to build the New York economy through the Regional Council and the new New York Works agenda, which prominently has higher education at the table. While I have both the advantage and the challenge of coming to the council with an outsider's perspective, I am grateful to the Lieutenant Governor, to Jim Barba, and the entire council for their insight and their willingness to assist me during the last few months. I too wish to thank you for this opportunity to serve the council and to showcase and advance the vitality and promise of the Capital Region.
We inherited a very solid framework for our strategic plan, and I'm proud, frankly, to have been a charter member of this council and helped author this plan. At the time that I was named co-chair, our status report showed that the projects funded in 2011 with $62.7 million of state investment were making progress. In 2012, in response to the CFAs, we identified 33 additional projects as priorities for funding. In December, this past December, the award of $50.3 million in funding to support 84 projects in the Capital Region was announced. 40% of those announced projects had been identified by our council as our priority projects. We were not named as the best plan, nor as a top performer, but we were very pleased with the number of funded projects and the level of funding commitment. Now, I will admit that some of us expressed that pleasure slightly less elegantly than others, but we were pleased nonetheless. Still, we certainly knew we could and had to do better, and we never stopped working. Right after that December 19th meeting, we got right back to work with our council. Our immediate goals were to expand outreach to community involvement, something that has been very, very dear to my heart. To retool the council structure with new working groups to better focus on the strategic goals of that plan, and to make better use of the knowledgeable state agency resources that had been made available to us, but which we had not used at all, frankly, during the first 2 rounds of funding.
In studying the review panel's assessment of our plans, the opportunity to improve were clearly spelled out for us based on what we were doing well and where we could do better. The council was praised for its consistent strategies, but it was also noted that these strategies could be streamlined and more focused. The council was also recognized for its collaborations and engagement with various sectors, including the media, education, financial services, healthcare, tourism, and culture. However, the review panel indicated that improvements could be made in several areas, including project readiness and commitment of matching funds, the improved metrics and timelines, and the identification of projects to support strategies, not the other way around. The panel's assessment laid the groundwork for the improvements the council is now advancing. For example, earlier this year, the strategic work group were realigned and expanded to better support the council's strategic goals, as Jim referenced. The newly restructured pipeline to project work group has been charged with identifying projects that support our strategies in areas of infrastructure and transportation, technology and innovation, and agribusiness. They are beginning to foster and develop productive working relationships with economic development professionals throughout the region. The public engagement work group has been streamlined and improved our presence on the web and has enhanced public access to an awareness of the council's activities. This work group is also now issuing a monthly newsletter to reach more than 12,000 individuals. In addition, the full council meetings, the public is invited to participate in work group breakout session, which has been very well received. And as a result of all of these efforts, we have seen the average attendance at the council public meetings more than double. Our new workforce and education group, led by regional college and labor leaders, has already held 3 public forums and is beginning to look at opportunities to leverage the critical component of our local economies. The project metric and monitoring work group is reviewing our existing metrics and refining them to be consistent with recommendations of the review panel. Lastly, our newly created Arts, Culture, and Tourism Work Group is engaging knowledgeable community leaders and volunteers to promote our region's rich assets and heritage.
We're getting results. We're beginning to get good results. One of them that I'm most personally proud of is the level of public involvement, not only at our council meetings, but in our work groups. There was a time this past January, 2013, when I happened to be the only co-chair for our Regional Economic Council. And because no one told me I couldn't, I decided that I would invite any member of the public who was interested and willing to roll up his or her sleeves to come to our work group, be a contributing member, and work with the rest of us. That has paid off enormous benefits for us already. The work and the intensity of work on those work groups has expanded very, very significantly. But we're also proud of the projects that are moving ahead throughout the region and strengthening our economy. Just a few statistics, if I may. In round 1, 90% of the projects have executed contracts with the funding agencies, and 96% of the projects are on target for a timely completion. For every state dollar in round 1, we are attracting $5.1 of private funds. To date, 57% of the jobs have been either protected, that is retained, or created, as we indicated we would. Sample projects are the Saratoga, Washington Gateway Visitor Center, currently under construction, which demonstrates a collaboration of neighboring counties to increase tourism. The New York State Spring Water Corporation, which continues to grow in Catskill in Greene County, and M&G Duravent Corporation, which has expanded in Colony and will create 100 new jobs, providing lean manufacturing training as a result of funding provided in that first round. In round 2, 44% of the projects have executed contracts with the funding agencies, and 42% of the projects have been commenced. We did better in round 2 with leveraging. The ratio there is 7-to-1. Examples of those projects: Green Renewable Corporation, which is a small business that will create 35 jobs by developing a $12 million biomass industrial park and clean energy distribution center in the tiny town of Berlin in Rensselaer County. The landscape restoration at Alana, something that is very, very important. Alana obviously is a national treasure. And Kiernan Plaza, in the heart of the city of Albany, will be renovated and serve high-tech firms focusing on smart cities technologies innovation. We will continue to monitor the progress on these and on all projects and measure their effects on advancing our plan.
Moving forward, here's what you can expect from us. We will continue to work on the priorities you've laid out for the Regional Council, including the Opportunity Agenda, Innovation Hotspots, and Path Through History, which aligns with our strategic goals and newly restructured and expanded work groups. In fact, our Pipeline to Project work group is already actively engaged in meeting the objectives of your Opportunity Agenda. And as the council, we are committed ourselves to having an open, data-driven, very transparent process, one that fully engages the entire public and the entire community.
Governor, Lieutenant Governor, we clearly get it. We understand what we must do in round 3. And we believe that in round 3, our refocused efforts will result in identification of projects that will do some or all of the following. They will clearly further the goals and strategies put forth in our strategic plan. They'll directly or indirectly create new wealth. They'll collaborate across industries, sectors, localities, and I hope even regions. They'll create and or retain jobs, they'll leverage more private funding, and they'll demonstrate project readiness. Our council has a renewed sense of purpose and is ready to continue our collaborative work to strengthen and enhance the economy of the Capital Region and the state. Thank you for the opportunity.
Questions? Seeing none, now to the beautiful Hudson Valley. Next, President Dennis Murray and Marcia Gordon.
Great. Well, thank you, and Governor, thank you for having us and devoting so much time today to this program. We're happy to be with you. Let me introduce Al Samuels, a member of our committee who is with the Rockland Business Association. You already met Marcia Gordon, President of the Westchester Business Council. My co-chair, Dr. Lynn Schleifler, of Regeneron couldn't be here today because he's at a shareholders meeting, but I did want to note that Lynn recently announced that with the support of New York State, he's going to be building 2 new buildings in Westchester County to support Regeneron, which is the largest by capitalization biotechnology company in the United States that will create 400 jobs. And with the investment the state made in his Rensselaer project in 2012, together that will create over 700 jobs. And Regeneron was just added to the S&P 500. But one of the great stories, I think, about economic development is Lynn is very proud of a check he has from $250,000 that was signed by Mario Cuomo that was part of his economic development efforts. And it just goes to show that sometimes great economic development strategies take time, and one generation benefits from the sound investment of a previous one. So anyway.
Did the state, the predecessor to ESD, which was the Urban Development Corporation, not only did they give the business a startup grant, basically, the state was an equity investor at that time. The state had its own venture capital fund, invested in Regeneron, and wound up making something like 10 times their money back. So not only did they create jobs, we also made a ton of money. So thank you very much again for me. And we didn't pay taxes on the gains, which was always good.
And I think that's something we should consider perhaps doing more of in our state. Yeah. I think we're poised under your leadership to take advantage of that. So let me tell you a little bit about the work of our council, the Mid-Hudson region. The Mid-Hudson region is one of the most diverse in New York State. We have 6 Fortune 500 companies, but also Sullivan County, a very rural county. But we think we have come together as a region because of the initiative of the governor and his approach to bottom-up economic development. We believe that our 4 core strategies that we identified in our 2012 plan still very much hold. Invest in various types of high technologies, creating those jobs of the coming decades. We focus on 3 areas there: information technology, biotechnology, and manufacturing. We want to attract and retain jobs to certain industries. Our purple circle there. Because we're a region blessed with great beauty and are really divided by the great Hudson River to some degree, we want to emphasize in the green circle things that are environmentally friendly and that allow us to capitalize on economic development associated with the environment and agriculture and some of the other things our region is known for. And then we've stressed infrastructure. And surrounding those four key strategies are some of our other key themes: workforce development, minority and women-owned businesses, public and private partnerships. We try to work very closely with the business associations and businesses in our area. And then a legislative agenda that the governor's been great in supporting to help make our state more business friendly. We are in the implementation stage. I always love this quote by Peter Drucker. He says, at some point, all planning has to degenerate into work. Well, with the grants we've received, we're out there working, trying to implement those and trying to create the jobs that we were tasked with creating. We have a three-pronged approach to that. We work to find good projects that align with our strategies. We monitor their progress carefully. We continue advancing economic strategies through projects and partnerships that are outside the funded areas, and I think we've done a very good job of working with regional stakeholders to work on non-funded initiatives that also align carefully with our plan. These are the numbers that we have. We didn't do very well in 2011. We weren't organized well in 2012. We came back with good advice from the strategic review team and were an award winner. And these numbers, I think, show what is going on in our area. And I'm pleased to point out that we have had a downtick in unemployment in our region and an uptick in private sector employment. So things are definitely going in the right direction in the Mid-Hudson region. I'm going to turn it over to Marcia now. She's going to tell you about some of the projects that were funded in 2011. I'll take 12, and then we'll talk a little bit about the future.
We've seen, Governor, some very exciting projects in our region. In Yonkers, the Public School 6 project is moving forward, and I can give you lots of statistics here, but what's really important is that with the demolition of this old school and the construction of 121 units of affordable housing, we are really seeing the transformation of a community that was isolated before to now being connected to the other parts of the community, and it's very, very, very exciting. The New York Medical College iBio incubator is groundbreaking, and we were very pleased to have the groundbreaking for phase 1 of the construction take place on December 6th. Dr. Schleifer and Commissioner Ken Adams both participated, and we feel that that's going to be the next generation of finding cures and spurring entrepreneurship in this sector. And there you are, Governor. The Kingston Clearwater Sloop is a completed project in conjunction with the Hudson River Maritime Museum. It got a CFA award of $400,000, a total project cost of $1 million. And as I said, this was really just in time to implement the Sloop Clearwater's most extensive renovation to date, and was host this winter to 4 barn dances, which we should make for some very interesting photos next year.
We'll move on to 2012. One of our projects that was funded is a new medical school in Orange County's part associated with or closely located near the new Orange County Regional Medical Center. The cloud computing project is off to a great start, and we hope to use cloud and the analytics associated with this cloud project not only to incubate businesses, but to cross over into some of our other strategies. An example might be having shared services for small manufacturers through a cloud environment, and we're working on that, and we think there's going to be some other funding from outside the state to help make that possible. And then to show you the diversity of the things we deal with, from high tech to crown maple syrup in Dutchess County, which has a goal of becoming one of the major maple syrup producers and rival Vermont in this regard. And it is not only a manufacturing of a food, but they've also set it up so it's a tourist destination where tourists can come and learn about how maple syrup is made. So these just show you some of the diversity of things that we funded in 2012. And 90% of all our 2012 projects are either completed or green lighted. So we're making very good progress in that regard. Our work groups are organized around our 4 key strategies and the 4 supporting strategies, so we won't spend a lot of time on that, but we are reporting, as we were asked to, on the work group progress. Another thing I think we've emphasized is trying to tie our economic development strategies to some of the other strategies that your administration is promoting. So we bought in, of course, to the Cleaner, Greener Communities initiative, and I think we were the first region to endorse the sustainability plan, and we also asked those who are active in developing that sustainability plan to become involved in the work of the council. We've tied very much into the pathways through history. The Mid-Hudson Valley is, of course, rich in U.S. history and presidential history, so we want to play a big role in that regard. And we should note on the presidential history theme that the FDR Presidential Library just underwent a $30 million renovation that created a lot of jobs, going to reopen in June 29th, and we invite you all to come there if you want to just see some of the digital archive resources there. Their site has been recently redone, and we actually host that at the college. So come see the FDR Presidential Library, our nation's first presidential library. The red circle are our technology initiatives again. We're certainly trying to tie into the governor's other initiatives in that regard. We're working on the hotspots issue to figure out an incubation strategy. And we're also trying to figure out how we can use some of the work we're doing in other areas in our high-tech initiatives to tie into the PTAC program that the governor has launched. So finally, I'm going to turn it over to our bronze circle, which is infrastructure and housing and other areas. Let Marcia tell you a little bit more about that.
Well, we certainly can't talk about the Mid-Hudson Valley without talking about the Tappan Zee Bridge. And I'm so glad Al Samuels is here. And Governor, I want to tell you, just this morning, one of the business council's members said to me, I just bid on a project for the Tappan Zee Bridge. So businesses every day, this was an architectural firm, small businesses every day are telling me that they are getting opportunities and people are getting employed and their businesses are poised for growth with this new project. It's very exciting. We also have members of our council that are serving on the Visual Quality Panel and the Mass Transit Task Force. Our infrastructure work group has been reestablished with a focus on the New York Works Initiative and really continuing the assessment of the regional infrastructure priorities. We are partnering with Hudson Valley Pattern for Progress's Center for Housing Solution and Pace University's Land Use Law Center's Mayors Roundtable. We get all the mayors together. And we're certainly focusing on the opportunity agenda. We're engaged in the early stages of planning. We are particularly interested in targeting youth participation, summer internship programs. We have a very robust program going on in Westchester, and we look forward to expanding that as well.
A quick look at 13, what we're doing. We've been known as doing a great job in public outreach, so we've continued that. Both the members of the state team and members of our council have reached out to every county in the region, again, to solicit new ideas, new directions, build upon what we've done. We're never forgetting that we're ambassadors to business, so again, we work closely with the various business organizations and the major businesses in our region, and we're just prepared to issue our call for priority projects for 2013. We're also working on, we're one of the councils to have a regional marketing initiative, so we're putting that together. We're continuing our emphasis. We believe they're still all valued on our technology initiatives. And then finally, in terms of our pipeline, some of the things we're working on that we think could really pay off, and again, tie to other strategies of the administration, is major destination resorts in our region tied to either food and beverage or historical or ecotourism. And we're looking at the Pearl River site in Rockland County, the former Pfizer facility. Actually a beautiful facility, strategically located because of its proximity to New York City and good transportation systems. See if we can't come up with some innovative proposals. And then in terms of what we call healthcare / biotechnology, we're looking at not only programs there that we believe could spur new jobs in New York State, but we're trying to tie some of those back to your goals for the areas that are economically depressed, where we could help create employment results for those particular communities. So we feel we're on a roll, we're doing good things, we're starting to see results in terms of, again, those bottom line numbers and job retention and creation. So I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Questions?
Very shy, very shy. Maybe we have an extra bonus point if people ask questions.
Take notes.
Yeah, that's right. North Country will be right there, I promise.
Great job. Next, moving on to New York City, I welcome Ken Knuckles and Stu Applebaum.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor Cuomo. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Duffy, for the opportunity to meet with you. And thank you also for providing a 21st century model of the way that economic development should be approached by government. I know I sit here today and I listen to all the projects all over the state, and I have to tell you I'm very impressed. We say New York works, but New York government works as well. Our Regional Council Chair, Matt Goldstein, the Chancellor of CUNY, was unable to be here today, and he asked Ken Knuckles, who's the president of the Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone, and myself to represent the council. We're both members of the council's executive committee. And since we were last here, much has happened in the New York City region. Hurricane Sandy altered the lives of millions of New Yorkers, some temporarily, some profoundly. And it altered the region's priorities, both in the immediate and in the long term. It demonstrated our resiliency as well as our vulnerability. As the council's work moves forward, we're focused both on recovery and on jump-starting the next generation of sustainable economic and environmental development. The council and its members represent a valuable resource for the state and the city. We want to work closely with your office and the state as part of the discussion about how to invest more sustainably for the long term. Infrastructure, small businesses, and job creation. The Regional Council can play a key role in supporting and coordinating efforts between the state and local stakeholders. In that spirit, our presentation today will reiterate the Council's unifying vision for economic development in the city and revisit many of the transformative ideas expressed by the Council in its strategic plan and progress report. The challenge. New York City is a global capital of business and finance. We're the #1 tourist destination in the nation. We're the nation's retail capital. We're the capital for healthcare, fashion, and so many other things. We have the largest aggregation of top medical research institutions, universities, and cultural facilities anywhere in the nation. We're a global technology center with growing concentration of entrepreneurs, scientists, engineers, and innovators. But at the same time, we have crushing income inequality. We have the highest degree of income inequality in the country. 21% of the population of New York City, 1.7 million people, live below the federal poverty line, and many, many more near poverty. And that includes a lot of working people. And that's why we have rejected outdated notions of economic development which don't take into account the quality of the jobs that are created. Our challenge also involves the fact that 29% of public high school graduates, only 29%, are deemed ready for college or a career. So our vision. Business, labor, government, and community interests in New York City are united in support of both accelerated economic growth and expanded economic opportunity. Our strategic plan spells out what we need to do to build a stronger, more inclusive economy. Reinforce the historic strengths of our anchor industries. New York is not only a global center of capital markets, but of many other industries as well. As such, New York attracts employers that set the pace for innovation, compensation, and labor standards in their industry. We need to enhance the livability of the city in order to attract and retain talent. Attraction and retention of talent is key to attracting and retaining businesses, jobs, and investment. This requires providing residents with a highly livable, safe, and comfortable environment and a range of lifestyle assets for them to enjoy. We need to invest in infrastructure. Investing in the region's infrastructure is necessary to fuel economic growth and to maintain the city's competitiveness in the global economy. We need to encourage high-tech innovation. The city's continued status as a global capital of commerce depends upon unleashing the power of New York State's entrepreneurial and research university assets to create the industries, businesses, and jobs of the future. We focus on workforce development. Equally important as investment in infrastructure is investment in human capital in the areas of workforce development and retraining, so that New Yorkers currently unemployed or underemployed can qualify for innovation economy jobs. Promoting interregional cooperation. Our plan prioritizes how the city can promote growth across the state and benefit from resources of other regions. Examples include connecting the agricultural sectors upstate to city markets, introducing upstate manufacturers to local markets, connecting upstate startup businesses with local venture capital financing, and drawing upon upstate university resources to reinforce development of statewide tech clusters. Leveraging private investment. The Council's plan reflects members' strong belief that securing private investment is an important indicator of a project's potential for growth and success. One of the strategies of our plan that we're most focused on is facilitating development in 15 communities of the city with high growth potential, which have been rezoned to catalyze economic growth and provide room for new businesses and housing. This strategy has provided a valuable framework for the Council to examine 5 borough economic development strategies and projects that spread the wealth, not just Manhattan, all 5 boroughs. This strategy also recognizes that New York City's size and diversity require that resources be concentrated in order to generate meaningful results, particularly in economically distressed areas. Progress in these communities is supported by important investments made through the CFA funding process. More than 75% of CFA funding in New York City has gone to projects in these areas, and the Council is greatly appreciative of these investments. In terms of the progress of our work groups and committees, last year an executive committee was formed, and it has held regular calls and meetings to consider and act on time-sensitive state funding requests and to develop our priority project criteria. In addition, an Infrastructure and Capital Improvements Committee was established to review, prioritize, and monitor progress on relevant proposed or pending infrastructure and development activity. More recently, Council members, workgroup participants, and state agency resource staff have been busy with 3 of the new Regional Council initiatives: Path Through History, the New York State Cleaner, Greener Communities Program, and the Opportunity Agendas. With the Path Through History initiative, we've assembled an impressive 36-member work group from all 5 boroughs consisting of historians, educators, tourism experts, and design professionals who possess a vast store of knowledge and expertise in the history and culture of New York City neighborhoods. The work group has just submitted to the Regional Council a proposal for the implementation of its Heritage Tourism Plan. Through the New York State Cleaner, Greener Communities Program, council members and state agency resource staff are working with New York City's Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability to finalize an 80 by 50 study, an update of the city's Plan NYC, whose goal is to reduce greenhouse gas emission by 80% by 2050. The need to invest more sustainably for the long term are especially important for New York City, as we've seen the effects of global climate change and Hurricane Sandy. An Opportunity Agenda Subcommittee has recently been formed to design a set of strategies for linking distressed communities to strategies for revitalization and economic life. The subcommittee is already working with state agency resource staff to identify possible opportunity areas. In 2011, the council identified one transformational project in each borough, plus one citywide project, the Applied Sciences Initiative, and one interregional project, the Seed Start Accelerator. These projects particularly reflected the council's desire to leverage the city's economic strengths by advocating for projects that have a multi-region economic impact, that address conditions of economic distress, and that encourage the growth of innovation industries. In 2012, the projects recommended by the council reflected a much-needed focus on redeveloping and enhancing the city's existing physical resources to benefit economically distressed communities and build the innovation industry clusters and high-tech industries that will sustain New York's competitiveness in the coming decades. Because of our limited time, we've chosen to report on 3 of our priority projects which reflect our council's strategies. The most immediate and significant breakthrough triggered by the council's plan and subsequent state funding is the model 21st century industrial park being created at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. The Navy Yard languished for years until new leadership and a series of public and private investments in Steiner Studios and green advanced manufacturing facilities combined to achieve a critical mass of modern production activity. Construction has begun on the Green Manufacturing Center, and 2 tenants have been identified. Cry Precision, a premier manufacturer of military apparel and body armor, and Macro C, which I'll discuss momentarily. New York State is providing a $6 million grant and a $12 million allocation of federal new market tax credits to the project. The project is currently in construction and is expected to be complete by the end of 2014. Unleashing the potential of the Navy Yard continued to be a priority for the council last year through additional priority projects, including Macro C's New Lab. New Lab's facility, which will be located in the Green Manufacturing Center, will house educational institutions, design firms, and entrepreneurs in a collaborative high-tech design and fabrication laboratory. It addresses the Regional Council strategies of generating new high-tech manufacturing jobs through partnerships with the private sector and contributing to the development of industry innovation clusters that will allow the city to continue to diversify and grow its economy. The project will result in 300 new jobs for Macro C's new tenants. Last week, Macro C officially opened a beta space near the project site in order to give entrepreneurs an opportunity to launch their businesses and create jobs more than a year ahead of schedule. New York State is providing a $1.25 million grant to the $14 million project. The project is expected to be completed in late 2014. Harlem is the location of the third transformational project that we're reporting on today, Create at Harlem Green. The former Tasty Bakery complex closed more than 30 years ago. It's being transformed into an entrepreneurial center of sustainable business and creative enterprise. The new facility will target a broad range of commercial, retail, and community uses, light manufacturing, office, retail, and community facility space. The new building will have entrances on both 125th and 126th Streets in the heart of Harlem. The sale of the property to a private developer was completed in 2012, and this past March, the ESD board approved the project funding of $10 million. The redevelopment will commence by July 2013. The project is expected to result in the creation of 440 permanent new jobs. The council is also making great progress with the implementation of our CFA projects. For our 2011 projects, nearly all of the projects have executed contracts, and half of all projects are projected to be complete by the end of this year, 2013. The 2012 CFA-funded projects are making significant progress as well. More than 60% of applicants have received contracts, and more than half of the projects are slated to be complete by the end of next year, 2014. Our combined 2011 and 2012 CFA awards of $116 million are projected to result in a total project value of more than $1.3 billion, a ratio of total investment to state funding of 11-to-1. Our priority projects have resulted in 15,000 new and retained jobs. For 2013, the projects recommended by the Council for Capital Funding will reflect a much-needed focus on enhancing existing resources to benefit economically distressed communities, building the innovation industry cluster and high-tech industries that will sustain New York's competitiveness in the coming decades, capitalizing on the state's higher education assets to link with job creation, contributing toward building industry clusters across multiple regions of the state, and demonstrating measurable job creation, investment, and business revenue generation. In closing, and I've learned that that's the best part of any speech, in closing, the New York City Regional Economic Development Council has made significant progress in achieving its objectives since the release of its strategic plan. We've established operating protocol to ensure community engagement. We've provided a forum enabling all stakeholders to work together. We've effectively focused public and private resources. And finally, we've established the basis for interregional cooperation and business-university partnership. Council members represent all aspects of economic development in the city. We therefore look forward to engaging in thoughtful long-term planning that will sustain the city's place as a unique and powerful generator of economic opportunity for all New Yorkers. And there is one final word I'd like to make also, and that is to express the Council's appreciation, not just to all of you, but also to Joe Taswell, who has worked so tirelessly with us and so effectively with the Council. Thank you all.
Any questions?
Governor?
Ken?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Thank you, Stuart. Very helpful. I have a question. As you know, last week here in Albany, the governor hosted the Tourism Summit, at which he announced a historic new level of funding for tourism, for marketing, for destination promotion and attraction all across the state. $60 million, in fact, a record amount of support. One of the things we've heard about in the New York, if you think about tourism in the New York City Council, Regional Council, is that it's not all about Times Square. It was in your slide. Folks know how to find Times Square. I'm just wondering, with these new tourism resources, it's a little complicated, right? But with these new tourism resources, there are assets and attractions all across the city. How will your work groups at the council compete for this new block of funding for tourism, given the complexities of that in New York City?
Do you want
Well,
to
yeah, I'll take a shot at that, because that observation rings true, especially as it relates to Harlem and Upper Manhattan. And as a member of the council, what I think we'll do first and foremost is to solicit from the regional organizations that promote tourism, like the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce, like organizations in Queens, like organizations in Washington Heights, who are at the ground level of tourism, and elicit from them proposals that hopefully will make it to consideration on the part of the council.
And I just add that the people we have involved are people who are coming from all parts of the city, not just Times Square may be there in the picture, but we have people who are in every part of the city involved in the work we're doing.
Thank you.
Stu and Ken, thank you. Last but not least, the final region of the day, Long Island. We have Pat Edwards and Stuart Benowitz. Pat, you're all set with your time, but Stu, we've cut down to 49 seconds.
We're going to accomplish
Those
that.
professionals.
We saved the best for last.
I'm a recovering lawyer, so when you say 10 minutes, I'm picturing arguing in front of an appellate court, light going on, and you shut up after 10 minutes, so we'll be brief. I do want to thank the governor and lieutenant governor and the commissioners for the opportunity to present to you today. I also want to echo a little bit of what New York City said and how I've been sitting around listening, actually paying attention to all the reports, and I'm incredibly impressed by two things. Number one is, I know we get very competitive in this process. It's in our DNA mostly to want to win if there's something to win. And by the way, in that regard, I would point out to the North Country that Teddy Roosevelt actually lived on Long Island, in Sagamore Hill. And Long Island has great oysters as well as scallops and clams. But seriously,
I would point out he lived in my house.
That's true. But seriously, when a push comes to shove, we're all residents of New York State, and it's great that so much progress is being made all over the state, and I really mean that. And secondly, it's amazing that this concept of regional council and the economy, the economic development coming from the ground up works for so many divergent regions. I mean, we're so different from each other in so many ways. We have very common problems sometimes, but really we're entirely different in many ways. And yet, everybody says this regional council process has worked, both as a matter of the injection of economic development funds where they need to be, and the process that was established works for all of us. And that's a real compliment to the governor and the lieutenant governor and Ken and everybody involved with this. So this is my third time that I had the opportunity to address the council about Long Island's plan. The first time was when we proposed our strategic plan, and I began by trying to dissuade anybody of the idea that Long Island was uniformly a wealthy bedroom community of New York and had no challenges. In fact, we had significant challenges, and we still have significant challenges. We never replaced the high-paying jobs of the defense industry. Our young people, like in some other areas, are leaving rather than coming in or staying, so where will the workforce of tomorrow be? We're the oldest suburb in the nation, many people say, so our infrastructure is the oldest. We were built went before smart growth was even a term. And there are deep, deep pockets on, quote, wealthy Long Island of distressed communities, underserved communities, poor communities on Long Island. And by our counts, adjusting for the cost of living and apply on Long Island and applying that to the poverty level, we think almost 42% of Long Island families are struggling to live with the cost of living on Long Island. And so we proposed some really bold projects in round one. I would also say I was very honest in round one, and I just came out and said the governor was the handsomest governor in the country. I didn't show pictures. I said he was the handsomest. The fact that we won round one had nothing to do with that whatsoever. But in round one, we proposed some really significant projects, and there was some skepticism about around the table. There was no skepticism about the strategic plan, because what our strategic plan did was to take the incredible assets and resources of Long Island that we know in our hearts are sufficient to overcome our challenges, and put them together in a coherent plan. And that made sense. And in fact, it's astonishing that on, sort of balkanized Long Island, there's universal agreement that that strategic plan for the next 5 years is the way to go. But we proposed some projects that were quite bold. Projects that Wyandanch and Ronkonkoma and various projects that projected a huge amount of leveraging and a huge number of new jobs. And there was some skepticism, we understand. And so the next time I addressed the board was in October of 2012, when I was delighted to report that according to Empire State Development own objective statistical analysis, the first round projects that were funded by the Economic Development Program through Long Island's Regional Council created or retained more jobs for the least amount of state money and leveraged the most amount of non-state money than any other of the 10 regions. And I'm here to say, as an update, that kind of progress and that kind of intense scrutiny continues to this day. And we are moving forward with the same kind of confidence, the same kind of feeling of a fiduciary responsibility to monitor progress, which we feel and believe and live every day. I would also add to that we are flattered and embrace the governor's new charge to the Long Island Regional Economic Development Council, which is to provide a regional voice and a regional coordination of the 19 reconstruction zones as a result of the terrible devastation, not only to New York City, but to Long Island, particularly to Nassau County. And so these are very separate issues to us, because Long Island needs to rebuild after Sandy and rebuild as best we can, limiting better than we built before, so we can try not to have this happen again. But it's also equally important for us to continue the economic development program that we started in 2011, thanks to the Regional Council. So one of the real obstacles on Long Island has been that I think to development has been coherent development. We have, I think, the greatest number of governmental entities per square foot of any other region, perhaps in the United States. We have counties, towns, villages, school districts, sewer districts, garbage districts. I may form my own Hofstra district, someday. But and so the problem on Long Island is that there wasn't any one voice, that one place where everybody who was interested in the regional economic growth of Long Island could come, sit at a table, and collaborate and exchange ideas. And the Regional Council on Long Island has filled that vacuum. It has the respect of everybody, and I mean, there's a slide showing all of or some of the partners that hardly spoke to each other beforehand, who are now come together as part of the regional council. So, collaborations between institutions like Hofstra and Stony Brook and Brookhaven and Cold Spring Harbor, between government and private industry, between work groups and the hundreds of work group members. They've all worked to improve our creativity, accelerated our accomplishments, and overcome our challenges and move the region forward. Long Island's vision has been advanced by the development of strategies designed to address challenges in areas that you have heard about around the table. They're common areas that need attention: our workforce, our educational system. We have a great school system for some, but not for everyone. We have industry, some advanced manufacturing. We have natural assets. We have heritage tourism. See Sagamore Hill. We have infrastructure focus, and of course on the arts. And as I said, we have worked diligently to monitor these projects. So on the data slide, okay, I don't have the vision to read that data slide, but you do perhaps. And so Long Island's round one projects, all of them that were funded are under construction, of course under contract. Some cases, they've really exceeded our projections, which is an amazing thing. And for example, Accelerate Long Island, which is an organization designed to connect research institutions on Long Island and create an ecosystem to commercialize the research that comes out and have people start companies and stay on Long Island. That is ahead of schedule. They've already, with thanks to a state matching grant, they have already started a venture capital fund, a seed fund, and they have been funding a number of startups in an effort to commercialize that research. Round two projects are in contract. 90% of them are in contract, and many are ahead of schedule. For example, Winthrop University Hospital's Research Institute is under construction. If you drive through Mineola, you could see it under construction. I beg to differ with somebody who said they've created the first medical research institute in a clinical setting. We're tied, because that's Winthrop, is a medical research facility in a clinical setting. Hofstra's, I'm proud to say, our medical scholars pipeline, which takes students from the most distressed school districts, not only in Long Island, but even in Queens. We even have a joint program, although they don't know it, with New York City. We take these students from the most underserved school districts, and we mentor them, and we have programs for them, and we open their eyes to all sorts of opportunities that there are, not just in the medical field, but in health professions in general. As you know, that is a very, very ripe area for employment. Now I would like to ask Kevin Law, my fellow co-chair, can't be here today. It's one of the few days that he has to spend down on Long Island meeting with the board that actually pays him to earn a living. But happily, Pat Edwards, who is a key council member, who's chair of the work group on the opportunity agenda, and she'll get to that. We're really excited about our work on that. But who's also vice president for community development from Citigroup, will do a little bit.
Thank you, Stu. In order to demonstrate the implementation of our strategies, we'll address only the region's 6 key initiatives and strategies with very specific examples. The first is the workforce training, led by the Long Island Regional Economic Development Council. Long Island businesses, trade groups, labor, government, educational institutions, and youth who have joined in and addressed skill development in career pathways geared to the needs of the Long Island economy and the capacity of the workforce. Projects currently include and are underway. Forgive me, Governor. This is my first time speaking to you, so I will admit I'm a little nervous. I'm a lector at church, but I'm a little nervous. So,
He's just a regular
You have an
guy.
excuse, I have none.
So, projects currently underway to further this strategy include the Long Island STEM Hub Initiative, specifically connected to distressed and disadvantaged communities, Farmingdale State College's STEM Diversity Program that provides mobile science units for increased access to disadvantaged and distressed communities. Projects proposed in Round 3 to further this strategy will be constructed around BOCES and Suffolk Community College as key players in the opportunity agenda.
So, as to innovation and industry clusters, the council has funded projects that are leaders in furthering the development of innovation and industry clusters. Some of them are Winthrop's University Research Institute in the village of Mineola, which I just talked about, and I'm not going to go through all of this. I'm just going to say there's a very interesting project at Cold Spring Harbor Lab. They have an advanced drug testing facility in Woodbury that they need, and that is, construction is underway. In terms of commercialization of innovative technology, the Thought Box, and there is a rendering of the Thought Box, I believe, up there, has grown in 3 months from housing 6 startup companies to housing 11. And it is, so that's 11 startup companies in this one complex of a cluster of technology. They are now expanding by another 25,000 square feet. So we are creating in Hicksville, which is a transit-oriented development, where someday hopefully we also can get affordable housing there, but where the automobile does not have to be the only vehicle of coming to and from work. We are creating there the beginning of synergy for a technology startup hub. Also, Cold Spring Harbor, it's interesting, Cold Spring Harbor Labs has connected with the Thought Box, and their researchers, who, by the way, are more and more, their researchers, entrepreneurial in spirit. In fact, we all are on Long Island now. That's Stony Brook, Cold Spring Harbor, North Shore LIJ. We're all looking towards entrepreneurial scientists. They are sending their PhD scientists to the Thought Box as interns to learn how to be entrepreneurs and to learn entrepreneurial skills and see up close how you turn an invention into a startup and then a mezzanine company as well. These kinds of partnerships simply would never have come without the collaboration and the help of the regional council.
Regional Council funded projects at 2 Long Island-based manufacturers, Dario and Cox Industries, are focused on the transformation of our traditional manufacturing sector. A $3 million Regional Council grant to Amneal Pharmaceutical has spurred 325,000 square foot expansion, well under construction, to create 400 new jobs and retain 700 jobs. In Round 3, we will utilize the community colleges and technical schools to create career pathways for students not immediately college-bound and address the gap in the supply side of our regional workforce. Projects involving agriculture and aquaculture, commercial fisheries, and heritage tourism are already producing significant results and increased exposure for those important sectors of our economy. In fact, today's Newsday, Long Island Newsday, reported the new initiative, Governor, and it's entitled the New York State Grant for Tourism, and it highlights our progress. The AAA magazine also highlighted many of the tourism initiatives. I'm one of those that read that on the weekend, so it was good to see that the Pathways initiative was highlighted. Construction on the Long Island Railroad third track is going out to bid shortly, and the expansion of the Brookhaven Rail Terminal is well underway. These projects have multiple benefits to the region, both economically and environmentally. Preliminary engineering work to assess the condition of the sewers and the sewer pipelines in the low-moderate income community of Hempstead is complete, and multiple infrastructure projects are ongoing in the community of Wyandanch. There is also the New Castle Cathedral project, which is in the low-moderate community of Westbury and Newcastle, and that is well underway and should be having a finishing ribbon cutting shortly.
So it says here in my script, SR with a pithy and dynamic closing statement, but I am going to skip that because I think I've been pithy and dynamic the whole time. So, because I want to give Pat a little bit more time to talk about something that we are so excited about, Governor, and that is the opportunity agenda part of the new round. And, you know, we heard that was music to our ears. Yes. We had many volunteers to head it up. We chose Pat, who's head of community development for Citigroup on Long Island. And I want you to hear, and you know, we don't mind if everybody else hears, if we're a little ahead of everybody else on this, about what we've been doing in trying to further this opportunity agenda.
So I am pleased to report that the 2013 focus on the opportunity agenda has been met with great enthusiasm. I'm pleased to assume a leadership role as co-chair along with Vanessa Pugh of Suffolk County Economic Development. For this work group, and I'm pleased to undertake this very important mission. The work group has met twice. We have well over 35 work group members who are very excited about participating, and after assessing both the will and the capacity of numerous distressed communities on Long Island to effect change, the work group has recommended and the Regional Council endorsed the community of Wyandanch as the opportunity area for the focus of our efforts this year. Over the past decade, $162.5 million in federal, state, county, and town funding to planning and infrastructure improvements has driven to Wyandanch under the Wyandanch Rising project forward, including a $7 million investment from the Regional Economic Development Council. But more work needs to be done, and we all realize that. Wyandanch is a pocket of poverty on Long Island, although many perceive Long Island as very wealthy. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done in order to achieve a successful revitalization of this community, both physically and holistically. With, as I said, 35 plus work group memberships, including representatives from the local community, businesses, educational institutions, key nonprofits, stakeholders, as well as government advocates at all levels. The focus of round 3 opportunity agenda component of the Regional Council's report will address the needs of the residents in addition to the infrastructure needs of the community on a whole. To achieve this goal, we are pursuing projects to enhance skill training, career pathways in manufacturing, innovation and entrepreneurship, mentoring opportunities, as well as internships involving local businesses in order to raise the basic skills and employment opportunities for our most vulnerable residents, a key element in strengthening the Wyandanch economy and the Long Island economy as a whole. In closing, we look forward to another opportunity to report to this esteemed group of New York State leaders in the fall and really appreciate the time that you have given us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments?
I have one comment. As you know, Long Island has one of the biggest clusters of medium and small-sized companies in nanotechnology. 65, 70 companies we work with in Albany at the college as suppliers are from Long Island. And under the Global G450C consortium that the governor announced, he directed us to allocate $500 million to buy New York from New York companies. And of that, about $200 million so far has been directed to those companies on Long Island. We would love your help to basically build bigger relationships and spend the rest of the money, at least part of it, on Long Island?
Yeah, that's an offer we wouldn't refuse, so.
Well, you gotta thank the governor, that means.
We'd be delighted to do that, and our new School of Engineering, in fact, wants to create a nanotechnology center of its own, but down on Long Island, and help coordinate those companies. But we'd be delighted to offer any help that we can. That's the kind of industry that we need to build to replace Grumman and the defense industries which disappeared when the Cold War ended.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Governor, I actually took some notes. I know it's been a long afternoon, but it's just been so rejuvenating. And there's just this observation that I wanted to share that I think is such a testament to your vision and leadership. I was thinking about the topics that have come up most frequently in the 10 presentations. The majority of presentations talked about small business and specifically MWBEs. 9 out of 10 of the presentations talked about the importance of agribusiness, either in the region growing food products or processing those food products, from beer brewers who are small manufacturers to yogurt companies. All 10 regions, 10 out of 10, mentioned tourism as a central component. All 10 regions mentioned advanced manufacturing, which doesn't get as much play centrally, but you have played such a critical role in helping the state move forward. It's not the manufacturing that I grew up in Buffalo when Bethlehem Steel laid off 10,000 people in 1 year in 1977. I remember that like it was yesterday. It's the manufacturing of the 21st century. It's a lot of small and medium-sized firms. There are 19,000 manufacturers across the state employing almost 500,000 New Yorkers. And in many regions of the state, more than half of them, even if they're just 1 out of 10 or 1 out of every 12 jobs, they make up 10, 15, 20% of the private sector employment, of the job dollars in the region. And so I just think it's interesting that tourism, small business, MWBE, manufacturing, and last but certainly not least, workforce development, skills development was mentioned by all of the 10 regions. That's a testament to everybody in this room, to the 10 regional directors of ESD, who are extraordinary. They work very hard for you, Governor. I know you know that, but it bears emphasizing. They're the 10 executive directors of the regional councils, Andrew Kennedy and the Lieutenant Governor's team. But when I started thinking about what everybody was saying, I rattled off some of the initiatives that you have mentioned in last year's State of the State, all of which are being implemented now, this year's State of the State, all of which are being implemented now, whether it's investments in education, innovation hotspots, the venture fund, the RET, the Regional Economic Development Councils, skills training, SUNY 2020, CUNY 2020, the Tourism Summit, focus on yogurt. We're now the yogurt capital of the country. There are so many initiatives that everybody is talking about now about how they've been able to build upon the success in the past 2 years, but it was really your vision and your leadership that preceded all of this. And I just want to say this is, yes, it's been a few hours because everybody took a little bit more than 10 minutes, but it was well worth it. And you know, it's a tremendous source of pride for me just to listen to this. It makes my job, they make my job helping you, Governor, so much easier than it otherwise would be. The last point, just a point of personal privilege. I have been living in Harlem. Harlem is my home, but as the governor knows, I'm a hardcore Buffalonian, and I still have an apartment on the street where I grew up, across the street where my parents still live. So when I was at home last week for work, I had a chance to have oatmeal with my parents 2 mornings. And I will say, Governor, I had a chance to visit my waterfront, your waterfront, downtown Buffalo's waterfront, and there is so much activity. When I think about what's happening on the waterfront, when I think about the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus, when I think about, because of your leadership, the Buffalo Bills will be remaining in New York State for many years to come, I can say, not only as the Deputy Secretary for Economic Development, but as a hardcore Buffalo gal. The Buffalo is indeed, because of your leadership, back. So thank you so much.
Here, here.
The governor's going to close the program out and have the last word. There's two quick things. When we leave here, there's a reception at the mansion the governor's hosting, where he lives and where Teddy Roosevelt once lived. And also, the last thing, also to echo, thank you for making this day great, for all the work around the room, all you've done, and all your great service to the state, and also to our great state team. And with that, please have our governor's going to close out an outstanding day. Gov?
Thank you. It has all been said. And it has been a long day. And Licia's points were very well taken also. Just a couple of quick points that struck me and thoughts for you to think of as we're going forward. I do believe in this concept as a management group, a coordination group, an innovation group. It is a natural. The way we have been organized doesn't work anymore. Someone said it'd be a perfect situation for the preceding generation, and they were right. Regional, collaboratives, business, government together, that's how it works. I believe that this concept will evolve naturally. I believe your job as leaders is to accelerate the evolution and to take it to the next level also. You can see that happening in the competition. I think on this next round of competition, the numbers are going to matter. I'm not on the strategic assessment team, but I hear them talk. You will now have 2 years of a track record, 2 years of funded projects. The numbers on completion date, leverage, number of jobs, that is going to be important because now we have accountability that can actually be measured. So I think the numbers will matter. Also, when I was at HUD, I ran a program called CDBG, Community Development Block Grants, the largest single community development, economic development housing program in the country. And I watched how different grantees handled it. Some projects will not come to fruition. And that is okay. That is okay. What's not okay is languishing. So if a project, we tried. This was a good idea, we tried. It didn't work out. Fine. Move on to the next one. And that's okay. But not resolving it will apparently hurt the overall performance. So that's just something for you to think about. On the evolutionary part of it, think about casinos. They're a long way off, but they have great potential, especially for certain regions of the state. You'd have to pass legislation, we'd have to pass a referendum. But that is something to think about actively as you're going around, going through your long-term planning. The Sandy funding is a real opportunity. That is $60 billion. New York will get over 50%. We basically split it with New Jersey, but we're going to get over 50%. Don't tell Governor Christie. And that is the largest single funding stream that we have. The way they wrote the law, the way we asked them to write the law on the appropriation, it's not just Sandy, it's Sandy, Irene, and Lee, which means it's Long Island, it's New York City, it's the Hudson Valley, it's the North Country, it's the Southern Tier. We have local community zones, we have large infrastructure projects. That should be incorporated into your work and what you're thinking. And really, there are great opportunities for funding there because there's a significant amount of money. That is the one time we actually requested, we got what we actually requested. So there's a significant opportunity there. The tourism, for the first time ever, you're going to have those county tourism offices coming to you. That's a new constituency. That's a new apparatus. That's a new opportunity to take these fragmented county approaches that were all doing their own thing, and you had counties competing with each other. It was really just ineffective. And now they're going to come together for a regional tourism approach. You will be the template for that. That is also an additional funding stream and an additional competition. But a lot of energy. We had, as you heard, people mention the Tourism Summit. A lot of energy. A lot of people who have just been disconnected for a long time and had no one helping them, and there's a lot that can be done there. There's also significant potential for this state economically with tourism, and we're investing a lot of money in that area, so that's a possibility for future growth. Path through history, the same thing. And just on the next generation, this focus is primarily on business and the private sector. Next generation will have to focus on government and the government organization also. We have 10,500 governments in the state of New York, and we just can't afford them. Upstate New York, the population has dropped about 2%. The cost of government has gone up about 50%. We have fewer people paying for more government. That equation just does not work long term. It is unsustainable. That's why the property taxes were going through the roof, et cetera. How do you start to consolidate those governments? How do you do shared services? It's very hard for the political world to get their mind around this because it's their fiefdom, it's their turf. They really will need the private sector to work with them on this and give them the encouragement and the initiative to make this happen. We started a panel, a program we announced yesterday that we're trying to get legislation passed for a financial restructuring panel for local governments, which is one step short of a financial control board that says to local governments, come before the panel because you are functionally insolvent, and let this state panel work with you in an actual restructuring. Because what we've been doing for the past 15 years is we just kick the can year to year to year to year. And the cities come to the state for a one-time, quote-unquote, subsidy, but it's been a one-time subsidy every year for 30 years. The state now pays about 1/3 of Buffalo's annual budget, is state money. About 25% of Syracuse is the state's budget. About 20% of Rochester is the state's budget. About 24% of Yonkers is the state's budget. We can't afford it anymore. And it says something if a city needs a quarter, a third of its budget subsidized, then it's not really a budget, is it? You know, it defies the definition of budget. But getting them back to a solvent entity where the expenses actually meet the revenue, that's going to be very hard. And again, it's even harder for the political establishment because it's bad news. And politicians don't like bad news. I know. And I know what we went through over the past 2 years. We had to go through that exercise here at the state. Bob and I did just this. Pension reform. We renegotiated our labor contract, 3 zeros. 0, 0, 0. That is a tough contract. So they'll need the encouragement of the business community to get that kind of realignment. But long-term, it's going to be worth it. Also, long-term, this discussion about the transition of academic universities to entrepreneurial thinking, that entrepreneurial academic that Harvey and Tony were talking about, that could be a long process, except we don't have the time. So how do you take what could be a long cultural evolutionary process and put it on steroids and jumpstart it is what we're going to have to do. I understand older universities, newer universities, but somehow New York is a step behind on that. We're going to recruit Elaine Calleros, who has figured this out before most people knew the question, and he's going to help expedite this transition of thinking. And it's delicate because academics are academics, and that's why they went into the profession. But you can be a great academic, and you can be entrepreneurial. And I could argue you'd be a better academic if you were actually entrepreneurial, because there's an application of your teaching for a student in their life and in this economy. So we're going to work on that. Keeping our fingers crossed, we have the legislative session the next few weeks. We're working on a couple of economic development ideas. I don't want to tease you, but A lot of this is building momentum and keeping the momentum going and people feeling the energy growing. We're working on a couple of economic development ideas that if we pulled them off would really, really be something special and bigger than anything we've done to date. And in conclusion, which are the two words of the day, Teddy Roosevelt paddling, the two pictures of the paddling. We've been paddling very hard for the past 2.5 years. And you've been paddling very hard. You have been paddling against the current, which is all the difference in the world. Every month since I've been here, the budget people come in and they say, well, this month wasn't so good, but we think next month it's going to get better. It's every month for 2.5 years. The national economy has not been cooperating. The current has been against us. It hasn't been terribly against us, but it's been against us. And that makes what we're trying to do much, much more difficult. You need that national economic tide, and then you can take the state up. But to do what we've been doing has been incredibly difficult. You're just starting to see, frankly, for the first time now, a glimmer of hope in the numbers, where you're starting to see some of the numbers change. But that's all been a national function. And I don't despair about that, because I believe the national economy will turn. It's only a question of when and how fast the current moves when it starts to come back towards us. But a lot of what we're doing, we had to do anyway. You know, a big part of this is cleaning away the underbrush that developed over 20 years. Making a government work and making a government cost-effective that hasn't been cost-effective and hasn't worked in 20 years. A lot of what you're doing is a basic framework of organization and management that had to be done anyway. When the economy does turn, we're going to be ready to take off. And you're going to feel the ease of paddling when you actually have the current coming with you, and the canoe is going with the current rather than you going against the current. And everything we're doing now will actually have been worth it and then some. And you're going to see us take off with all we need is the slightest change in the current, and you're going to feel the difference that you've made. Bob said kiddingly, double your salary. That you do this, you do it with the expertise and the skill that you've brought to this challenge. You are each to the person a phenomenal asset for your community and for your industry. That you've shared your time with the people of the state and the people of your community is such a gift that you've given to this state. I can't begin to thank you. That you signed on for what was apparently a simple task, a simple commission board once in a while, and it turned out to be an incredible pain in the hiney, the technical term we use here in public. I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough for what you've done. We'll go to Teddy Roosevelt's house. Teddy Roosevelt, who I love to study, he was an impatient fellow. There was a theory of constructive impatience about him. He had no patience for process. He had no patience for the tedium and the details. The quote works for TR. He was get action. It was about action. It was almost an action junkie, they would call him today. And quick moves. It's working, it's not working, on to the next thing. This building was under construction for 30 years. He got very impatient with the construction of the building. It was supposed to have a dome. 1899, he said, that's it, construction's over. Forget the dome, forget everything, close it up. Whatever we have now, we have. And that's why the building has no dome, and there was never a piece around the courtyard, which is what there was. But there's something to learn from TR. It's leadership, it's management, and it's getting it done. It's getting it done. Move it forward. It's the Peter Drucker quote, plans are nice, but it's about action, and it's about traction, and it's about making a difference, and physical signs of change, so people who are in communities who are looking desperately for hope and signs of progress see those signs of progress in what you're doing. That's TR's vision, that's TR's energy, and I think it's fitting for today. Now let's go to TR's house and let's drink New York. Thank you.